But where we at? Tell my man Seth. But where we at?
I got game, my aim is true, bells and straight winning it. From FP to RTS, I'm all into it. I seen your words online, now it's game time. We all know that you're just talk, now you're all mine. LOL, BF, Madden's all the same. A serial killer committed murder inside the game. Now you're beaten, yellow now, player no more. Back to the minors, game over, off, F4.
How's it going, guys, and welcome to another broadcast of the Alt F4 show, brought to you by ObsoleteGamer.com. Go there and see all your retro gaming and future gaming in store. I'm joined today by my co-host Jay LaRock.
Yo.
And by one of the legendary fighting game players of not just the NRS community, but the entire world. We know him as MK Tom Brady, but I know him as Bill Menudas. How's it going, Tom?
It's going good, man. How you guys doing tonight?
Good.
Good. How about you give everybody a little introduction about how you got started, not only in fighting games, but what you've been doing the last couple of years?
Fighting games. I'm got started in the very early 90s. I'd say 1990, maybe 91, with Fatal Fury. Just something that interested me. High school really kind of different. It was just, just the arcade era is. You kind of have the online era where players they know. The arcade was kind of that for the Beasterizer, which you can pretty much get games in any single game. So if you can get games in obviously the most obsolete games ever known, you can obviously get a lot of competition in some of the most popular franchises in the history of gaming: Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Killer Instinct, so on and so forth. So I kind of got started back in the early days of the arcade era. Was very successful throughout the arcade era, and even the modern era, pretty successful. Right now, I write guides for Prima. I was involved, along with Perfect Legend and CD Junior, with co-writing the Injustice Gods Among Us strategy guide. I was also involved in co-writing the Killer Instinct guide with my co-author Rip, who had a lot to do with the art book side of things, and really did a great job with that, and as well as doing more than half of the characters in season 1 so far. Mm-hmm. So did all thing of Mortal Kombat 9. And process guest testing. So right now, living guide in Mortal Kombat 9, and a lot of even the casuals also having, as in the living guide, with my own guide, writing guides for big. Just NRS. So also in the commentating from MLG. I'm not sure if I'm going to be commentating MLG, but it was awesome. Comment rest.
Where do you feel you got your big break as far as the tournament scene? What was your game that broke you into not only just branding yourself, but propelled you into stardom, more or less?
MK versus DC. I feel like before the internet era, it didn't matter what you did pre-internet era. and told about how good you are, how bad you are. People can relate to. You did, no one believes what you did, or you're just some old man and compete with the current competition. There's no Hall of Fame in fighting games. No matter how you are, no matter how great you are, and whatever fighting game is current, not play or not take it as it's taken. There's always going to be, and you are only good. You were broken. Your character was. The reason is there's no Hall of Fame be considered bad at the what it is. So, men and that to kind of springboard yourself into a play because there's no Hall of Fame. Thing that actually your previous guest, Fatality, taught me, and he was a commentator for them, and I had so when Mortal Kombat 9 came out, I kind of tried to go based off what he talked to me about GS and MK versus DC. Was the game springboard, and even when MK made its a splash back, into the mainstream with Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, there were several tournaments held for that game, be it TIT5, NEC, or just tournaments that were held local in several states that I was able to attend. Because the internet era was not as big as it was, that kind of stuff. There's no footage of it. No one heard about it. No one knows about it. Message boards for Mortal Kombat games weren't big as they are now. So an MKDC, when the online era was pretty big, YouTube was big, internet was big, and everyone kind of knew who everyone was. I'd say NEC, where myself and Rhea ended up playing each other in the grand finals for Mortal Kombat versus DC, kind of changed everything, because after that, it's when guys from NRS reached out to guys that they believed were top players in their games, and I believe that playing in that tournament directly affected them reaching out to me as one of the guys they reached out to, and that kind of changed everything going forward.
Do you think that the idea of it hurts gaming in general because of that lack of what you said, not having that Hall of Fame, because there are people that have almost a lack of respect? Because I think that in gaming itself, since it's mostly younger people, you have just a child mentality that you don't want to give respect to someone that you're playing. So it's one thing as a kid, you're playing against another kid and they beat you and you call them names and you see what happens on the online. But as you get older and this is a profession, you're trying to make it into a business. Now you do have people who do it professionally, and then you'll mention other gamers that you have respect for. But since so many people just want to downplay and attack and don't want to give respect, do you think that overall that hurts professional gaming because no one wants to actually name someone and give people proper respect, so you don't build up that same kind of legends and people that you have respect for that you will see in other sports?
Well, that's not really what it is. What I think it is ultimately this. It's not about not wanting to give respect. What I think is that sports has such a long line. Sports, you just can't say certain things publicly, regardless of what you believe, because you'll be humiliated, you'll be discredited. No reporter, you can't go into the NBA and make the playoffs a couple of years and say, "Yo, Jordan didn't even make the postseason until what year? I'm better than he is." You'll be a joke. You'll be a mockery that will be held over your head for eternity. And even if you win 1 or 2 championships, it's irrelevant. You know what I'm saying? That kind of stuff will always be held over your head. Fighting games is different. Sports kind of forces you to pay your dues. Sports only cares about he looks at the body of work. Doesn't matter how good you are now. If you want to compare yourself to an all-time great who has won multiple championships over the course of his entire career, They look at you and say you have one or no championships, or you're not even half the success. I don't care how good you think you are skill-wise. It's not about how good or bad you think your team is. It's about what you accomplish. Fighting games is a little different. If you're a new fighting game player, it's not about not wanting to give respect. It's about you might want to give respect, but you don't want to hear this guy was successful throughout 20 plus years and multiple platforms. Here you are playing one particular fighting game. It's your first time ever being successful. You know, you need to bow down to this guy who's been doing it for God knows how long throughout multiple fighting games. You're just starting to scratch the surface of what this guy's accomplished, and you don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear that. Hey, you're not going to get to say you want the same kind of respect or more so than this guy doing it for the last 20 years. So what do you say? You know what? This guy can't cut it in today's game because fighting games are not like sports or games in general. Sports age matters. When you get older, you're done. Games, not so much. So you say, why can't this old man come out and beat me now? And you say, you know why? Because I wasn't around back then. He can't win in today's era. His games back then were bad. You come up with 1,000 reasons of why some guy who's been accomplished over the years, long before you ever thought about playing a video game, you come up with all these reasons why you deserve the same as or more, more so much respect than he does, simply because of one or two things you've done. Even though you're just getting started, and this guy has done it for 20 years. 20 years ago, he's where you were, but he maintained it for 20 years. And I think that's the big part of fighting games, the fact that, it's not like sports where obviously you can't call out Muhammad Ali. Mocking out Muhammad Ali today means nothing. But in fighting games, you can, or in gaming in general, you can call some guy out. You can demand that he comes back. You can come up with all these reasons as to why he's not as good. And because you see so many new players in gaming every year, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of new players being in any kind of game, fighting games or otherwise. And they all say, you know what, you're right. This guy, they don't know who this guy is. They know who their guys are, their era is. So they say, these old guys, they can't win in today's games. They won't win in today's games. Come back and prove it, yada, yada, yada. And if you don't, you're a fraud. Simple as that. That's how fighting games work. There's no Hall of Fame in fighting games. And I think a large portion of that is because the overall reason why gaming in general fails, sports kind of has this, sports has a legacy that gaming does not have. I mean, when you think of a Premier Force sports franchise, you think of the Yankees, in baseball. You think of the Lakers, the Celtics in basketball. You think of so many teams in football, whether it be, some of the most dominant franchises. This guy that has tickets to the Lakers, season tickets, he knows that he has no business on the court with Kobe Bryant, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, Worthy, Shaq. He knows he has no business on the court with those guys. This guy that owns, season tickets, say, to the Baltimore Ravens, all those years ago, he has no interest in being on the football field and getting hit by Ray Lewis. He has accepted the fact that these guys are naturally talented athletes. They were just born superior than I was in these sports. So even if I put the same amount of practice time as they were, they'll just be so much better than me. I just can't play on their level no matter what I do. So they watch. They pay to watch. Fighting games are different. Or gaming in general. Whenever a gamer wins anything, the first question they're always asked on a major program or whatever is, how much time would you spend practicing? I've never heard anyone win a championship in any sport and the first question or ever asked, how much time do you spend practicing? Because it's a given that player spends a lot of time practicing. But it's not assumed that that's the main reason why they're good. In fighting games, or gaming in general, people believe it's just a matter of time, more so than a matter of natural ability. This guy that's willing to buy Kobe Bryant jerseys, buy season tickets to watch the Lakers, he believes that these guys are just better than him. But when it comes to fighting games, or gaming in any game, he believes that these guys are only professional, quote-unquote, or better than he is, but sit around all day with no job and play games all day. And if he didn't have a wife, a kid, the same amount of time as you, he's not just as good. So why would he pay to watch you be successful and help you be successful with something that he believes he could be just as successful in, except you decide you don't want to have a job, or just because you're good at games doesn't mean you don't have a job or go to school. But the general consensus is you're a gamer, you're a loser, you deserve nothing, get a real job, whatever. So they believe that, why should I help you profit when it's something I can do if I put the same amount of time as you in? And it's something that can never be disproven, because you can't force them to put the same amount of time in as you and still get beat, because to them, they're not going to, because they have a wife, kid, mortgage, whatever it is. So it's just something that they will always eternally believe that they are, they could be just as good as you if they put the time in, but they can't. So it's kind of hard to make gaming be on the same level as professional sports. And I think that until the generational gap totally turns over, where all the guys that grew up in the generation, 2 or 3 generations after I was born, once those guys get older and those guys inherit all their parents' money and gaming is important to them, then finally gaming will become a bigger part of the subculture, because eventually all the kids become adults and what's important to them becomes important to the world. I also think a big part of gaming, why gaming is not as big as sports, is gambling. It's very tough to gamble on gaming. Gaming is, gambling is such a big part of sports, and I don't think that sports would be anywhere near as big as it is if not for gambling. I just don't think you can't make the same kind of money in gaming as you can playing sports, and you can't make any money gambling off sports. So I kind of think that it's a process of things, between the players and the way gaming is perceived in the American subculture, that really prevent gaming from having any kind of Hall of Fame. Because if the guys that are willing to pay to watch gaming, or they have the money, that they sit there and they watch sports, all the time, if those guys believe that gaming takes, no skill, and hey, you have more time than I do, it's not a matter of you being better than me, it's just a matter that you have more time than I do, then how can, in the gaming subculture, newer players that are coming up sit there and say, oh, this guy's got a legacy, he's just better than I was, he did it for 20 years, I got to live up to this legacy. They look at you and they say, you know what, you have no skill either. Why don't you come and do it in today's game, old man? So it's kind of like, it's kind of like one thing goes into the other, which is why I think gaming is where it is. I think at a certain point, years from now, many, many years from now, gaming will be a lot bigger, but it's going to take a long time for the subculture to kind of turn over, where, all the kids right now sitting online playing all day, every day, and they become adults, and they have all the money, and those guys that are...
What do you think the thing that separates the top-end gamers right now from the average novice and mid-level gamers? Do you think it's the amount of practice they have? Do you think it's actually them having a certain ability still, quicker reactions, better muscle memory? Is that what gives them the edge, more or less? Do you feel that may be a bigger scene as well?
No. I feel like what separates someone who's top from someone who is not is the people that are top realize how they win. Not everybody wins the same. Some people have great reactions, some don't. Some are great defensively, some aren't. Some are great offensively, some aren't. Some are great guessers, some aren't. Some make great reads, some don't. Everyone has a different particular talent. Some have great spacing, some don't. Not everybody wins the same way. I think the guys that are successful know, one, how to win. Knowing how to win is something that's very big. Knowing how to win goes right over the head of the vast majority of players. And then realizing how you win individually. Guys sit there and they watch videos of so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, and what does he do, what does he do? They don't realize your strength as a player may not be the same. Trying to play like someone in a way that doesn't complement your individual playing ability doesn't really work. Playing the best character doesn't necessarily help you either. You need to find what makes you... The key to winning in fighting games is be the best at what you're the best at. Don't be better than so-and-so at whatever he does. Make what you do because you do what you do better than he does. And I think that goes way over the head of a lot of fighting game players. I think that's ultimately really what separates it. Practice time is a given. A player named Sleps, he used to have this thing where he always said, amateurs practice until they get it right, professional practice until they can't get it wrong. And I think that's a big thing. You know, it goes right over people's heads, I think. You know, that they don't really understand just how much time, practice, and just how much knowledge, more so than time, you know, just knowing not just how to win, but how you win. Because you can practice till you're blue in the face. If you don't really know how you win, you know, what are you practicing? You're practicing stuff that may not even work for you. You know, you have to know how you win, and you really have to kind of like have a good process as to really bring your strengths to the table. And I think the best fighting game players really understand how to do that.
What about getting to that next step? Because one of the things that I'm not a professional gamer, and I'm just getting more exposed to people who are. About getting to that next step. I mean, I grew up in arcades, and I was the kind of person who I was there when I saw the first Street Fighter, and I would walk up and I was playing it, and I didn't understand what I was doing, and neither was the person next to me. So I was able to grow into it. So by the time I was playing X-Men versus Street Fighter, it was a gradual process, which I can understand where it's different, where someone came into it later and it was more intimidating. I remember when it got to the point where you were used to walking up to an arcade and slamming down the quarter because you just felt that you were better. And if you got your butt kicked, so be it. Nowadays online, there are people who came in, and if they don't have the upper hand within the first few minutes, they disconnect. So you have so many different people that have a view on how they must win. When you get to the level where you go from I'm playing online, I'm playing against friends, to stepping up to that tournament, how do you prepare yourself to be able to stand there on the stage? Is there someone that could be really good when they're at home by themselves, but when they get on stage with the bright lights, they crack under that pressure, that you have to mentally be strong, kind of like how they say in sports, when you're on the big stage, you don't have the mental fortitude to do what you need to do to win?
Um, well, sports, first of all, is always a team game. It's a golf game. You know, it's not just about you, it's about you and your teammates. You guys all have a common goal when you work together to accomplish it. In fighting games, I kind of think, it's like poker. Fighting games is like poker. You have a lot of poker fighting games. When you're playing online or even in casuals, you're playing first to a gabillion. There's no finality. You can do whatever you want. You can be as careless and as reckless you want. You can do, and it can be really hard for the other player to really make a read because you don't care if you lose. You know, it's like, why would you do that? Oh, why not? I don't care. I'll lose. I'll just get one more game. But when you're in a tournament and you're playing first to three, it's like a poker player who plays for free all day or with someone else's money. They'll go all in every hand, and you don't know if they're bluffing or whatever because they're not really losing anything. You see what I'm saying? They're not losing their money or any money at all. So how do you really, but if you're playing for real and they're going all in and now they're broke, they might actually have something. You can make a read. Fighting games is the same way. As reckless as so-and-so may be, once tournament time comes and it's first to two or first to three, and they end up being reckless and go down a game or go down two games and they're on their last leg, they might say, oh man, now I'm scared, I mean, I was being as reckless as possible, but this guy is catching, or because it's a first to three, you sit there and say, you get away with this all the time on me. Now I dare you to do it, because when I catch it, you're going home. And there's no first to 50. So you may get afraid of, damn, if he catches it now, I don't have next game. If I lose this game, it's over. Isn't it? That's it. Yourself. I think tournament nerves are just no more than somebody so used to playing with no finality, where you can do whatever you want, when you want to, take as much risk as you want, and there really is no risk. It's not until you're in a tournament and you're in a first to two or first to three, and you realize if you're wrong, you go home, and that's it till next time, that you become afraid. You no longer like a player of your own convictions, and you're worried about it all of a sudden because now for the first time you have finality. And I think the difference with the arcade era is, if you're in the arcade era and you're serious about being good at these fighting games, and you go to the day long, you go home losing $50. And nobody wants to go home losing $50. No one wants to lose $20. Sit in the arcade all day long, get the crap kicked out of you, so you didn't have any fun, and you went home short of cash. So I think people back then kind of took it a little more serious in the arcade era because first of all, you're in public, so everybody around got to see. So if you lost like 30 straight games or you lost 50, $60, and you go back to that arcade next time, you can be sure you're made fun of on how you lost 50, $60. Um, so it's much different because the arcade era there was finality. Simply, your peers can let you know you stink every single day, and they can keep beating you and taking your money. In fighting games, it's kind of like you can go online and you can play online, and there's no finality, and you can see a guy who's won like 3 or 4 tournaments and say, hey, let me play this guy. Play them a couple of games, be all crazy, and then online it may work out. Beat him and say, I'm the man. I beat this guy. He won tournaments. I beat him. I would win too. And then this guy would go to a tournament, and all of a sudden realizing that there are a lot of players out there, and it just doesn't work out for them. They get nervous. Finality hits them in the face, and they fall down. And that's what I really think it is with fighting games. I kind of think also, especially now, where in the arcade era, you really couldn't choose your opponent. Like you mentioned, you go to the arcade, you slap your quarter on the machine, but you really have no control who you're playing. You can't invite someone from your friends list. You can't tell everyone else on the cabinet who does and doesn't get to play. If you wanted to play that game, you had to play whoever was on the cabinet. And if it's some guy that's going to kick the crap out of you, you can't sit there and say, I don't like this guy, he's too good, or I don't like his character, he's too cheap, he spams, quote unquote, on me, or whatever it may be. You either play that guy, or go home and you don't play at all.
Exactly.
Gaming now, you get to put someone out of a lobby, he's arrogant, he's bragging, whatever the reason is. The arcade, you're used to it. Somebody being cheap or spamming on you, you guys are playing for the money you have invested in that machine at that moment. No one wants to go home losing $20, $30 or more. So obviously, you have something invested in it. You don't want to lose. He doesn't want to lose. So if he doesn't want to lose, he's going to be as cheap as possible. He's going to abuse anything he possibly can. If there's something he doesn't think you can stop, he's going to do it consistently until it finally doesn't work anymore. In the arcade era, you have to deal with people possible, and you had to do it all while you're paying for your own games every single time. You don't get to pay $49.99 once and get infinite games. $49.99 could be one day in the arcade. You sit there all day long and you keep losing. So you kind of get used to all these things, and you kind of get used to all styles, everyone's mouth, everyone's anything, and you just suck it up, you play, you get better, and you learn. You also realize no patch is coming. You don't have a forum to cry to. You don't have anyone to cry to fix something. So your first thought isn't, I hope they take it out, I hope they fix it, I hope they fix my character. Your only hope is find a way to get around it with what you're doing, or if what you're doing and who you're using isn't going to work, find something else to do, or pick another character. Those are your options, and then what's your train of thought? The object of, I don't have to learn how to deal with this because someone's going to come along and take it away, that never struck you. So it was everyone trying everything to beat everything. And it just, nowadays you can be selective of who you want to play, based on their character, their attitude, how good they are. You can also play online for free. You can also play outside of the public eye in private rooms. No one knows what happens. It's just you and a friend. I just kind of think a lot of factors kind of lead to these quote-unquote what's believed as tournament nerves. But it's a lot of factors that actually have nothing to do with nerves. Or if you are nervous, it's not so much your nerves, it's all the factors that actually make you nervous as opposed to just your nerves itself.
Leading into something else, I was wondering, where do you feel, not just, I guess, professional fighting games would be going, but more so just the best business model right now, or the most successful business model for a game brand, seems to be League of Legends and Riot Gaming and how they do their LCS competition, where they sponsor teams and they actually pay for the teams to come out and play, and not only play, but they also give them salary. Is that something you'd like to see eventually happen within the fighting game community?
I would like to, but that's kind of tough. For any player to make, for someone to make money, there has to be, the guy paying them has to be making more money. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, no business can afford to pay out more than they make in. Everyone needs a return on an investment. fighting games is kind of tough because it's such a niche audience. It's not as like League of Legends. Besides just the competitive scene, obviously we both agree they're making a ton of money, way more than just the competitive scene. You got players who play that are just casuals. They'll never see a tournament. They don't even care about tournaments. They like the game. They play it. Fighting game is a little different. In fighting games, while technically speaking, you think a fighting game would have the highest replay value, which it probably does. In reality, these games actually have a higher replay value because people get to play these games just for fun. Fighting games are always competitive. You get to play games like League of Legends without actually competing, or you can play it and compete. So they kind of get the best of both worlds. They get the guys that want to compete and the guys that don't. They play for fun. Or even if you're playing for fun in a fighting game, you're still competing.
Mm-hmm.
League of Legends is kind of like, it's fun. It's got all things that you want to do in fighting game. I mean, in gaming in general, you got, you level up, you got items, you buy stuff, power ups, all that stuff that, and it's just more of a casual and professional game. Whereas fighting games are, literally, it's like if you're not a professional fighting game player, which is where fighting games have the highest replay value. If you're like an amateur or a casual fighting game player, you buy a fighting game. Once you unlock everything, you get all your achievements, and you play your friends for a little bit. There's no replay value left, unless you're a professional. But if you're a casual, like League of Legends guy, you have countless replay to it. So I think the replay value of these other kind of games is higher at a casual level. And that's where these games, they get to rake in so much money, which is how they're allowed to pay out salary and so on and so forth. Also, fighting games have a faster turnaround. Game like League of Legends, Warcraft, all these other, StarCraft, they'll be out for years and years and years. Fighting games, 2-3 years, new fighting game comes out, that's it. So it's very difficult because you never know how successful another fighting game franchise is. MK9 may not be as successful as MK10, and Injustice 1 may not be as successful as Injustice 2. So you really can't start paying out players assuming the next franchise will have the same success. But League of Legends is League of Legends. It has success, it's continue to have success. So they know that they can put money out there and success will continue. But because and success will probably continue with League of Legends for, years, same as StarCraft, years and years until the next one comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Fighting games just have a faster turnaround window, and they just don't have as big of an audience as these other games. So it's very difficult to play a fighting game player's salary simply because you're just not making as much money. The replay value, while is higher at the professional level, is nowhere near as high at the casual and amateur level, and they're just not pulling in the same kind of money overall because they don't appeal to as large of an audience as a whole as these other games do, like a League of Legends.
Do you feel, and I played both PC games, and now I play fighting games competitively. Do you feel that fighting games also suffer from marketability as far as keyboard, mice, peripherals? For example, I see EG, when they sponsor the League of Legends teams, they have RAM companies like Corsair being sponsored. Asus is sponsoring a company. Do you feel that fighting games are hurt in that aspect, that they're mostly bound to consoles like Xbox? And also, do you feel more or less that fighting games, considering they continuously come out, like for example, we had MK9 and then 3 years later we were treated to Injustice. Do you feel that that's also a bad thing? Like too much turnaround can actually hurt the longevity of games, and do you feel like maybe those companies are actually shortchanging themselves in the long run?
Well, fighting games are different than other games. Fighting games start at a peak and then they go down. So if you were to draw a graph of a fighting game, it would start up here and over years do this. So companies need to put a next fighter to have it going back up again. Other games aren't that way. Some games start like here and they can go up and they can have peaks. Fighting games don't have peaks. They start at their highest and then go to their lowest. Period. It's a simple line like that with fighting games. Mm-hmm. The PC thing is it's a good thing that you brought up, because I feel like when it comes to PC gaming, you really hit the nail on the head with that, because think about sports companies. They market Gatorade by marketing who? Jordan. Tiger Woods for a while with Gatorade.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all kind of players. Sports market. It's no different than computers. And the whole thing is, sneakers. You're not obviously not going to jump as high as Michael Jordan, but if you wear Nikes. But that's always the thing. Hey, Jordan wears Nikes. I'll wear Nikes. I'll be like Jordan. This guy drinks Gatorade. I'll drink Gatorade. I mean, they had Joe Montana marketing Pepsi when I was growing up. Even I drank Pepsi because Joe Montana drank Pepsi. Joe Montana wore LA gear, I mean, it's kind of like that. Something with gaming, hey, so-and-so, he's great. He plays on this mouse, on this keyboard, this processor, this monitor. This guy plays on this equipment. I'm going to play on this equipment. Fighting game players aren't that way. This guy plays on a Mad Cat stick? Really? No, everyone plays on a Mad Cat stick. This guy plays on a PS pad or a 360 pad? Duh, we all play on that. There's no marketability because the products that people play on are not special products. They're common products. You either play on a Mad Cat's fighting game stick, for the most part, or you play on a stock pad, whether it be PlayStation or 360. So the controller. It's either the controller, the default equipment that comes with the system, or the most popular fighting game stick. So, there's really no marketing. If you play on a stick, you're basically going to get Mad Cats. You don't have to have a player really sponsor. And Sony or 360, or Xbox, I should say, Microsoft, they don't really need any player to kind of endorse their pads because, those pads come default. They're going to get those pads anyway. They don't have to buy them. It comes with the console. I think it does hurt fighting games because it's kind of like, if and a lot of these guys when they see these guys that play on this equipment, of course they want it. They want the computers allow you to upgrade. Consoles don't. You get a console, that's it. Computers, it's this guy uses this computer. This computer's got so and such memory. So either you're going to upgrade your computer, you're going to upgrade your RAM, you're going to upgrade your keyboard, your mouse. A whole lot of you can accessorize a lot more with the computer than you can with a console. So there in general is more money. There's more product to push on people. Yeah. So the companies that actually have product to push are more likely to put money in. I want to sponsor you guys. I want my keyboard to be default. I want my mouse to be default. I want my monitors to be default. I want my video cards to be default. I want all that to be default. And advertised, hey, you see this? You came to this tournament today. You see these computers you were playing on. You liked how your game looked. You like how it sounded. This was this video card. This was a sound card. So what do you do when you go home, especially if you're casual? Man, my game looks like crap. I love that tournament I was at. Let me get that sound card. So these companies can put money in to make sure their equipment is the equipment being used, so that guys that come there and play want to go home and buy that equipment because they like the way the game looked, sounded, the way the keyboard or the mouse felt. They like the sound through the headset. Well, this headset's better than my crappy headset. I need a new headset anyway. What headset are you going to buy? You're obviously going to buy the headset that you just fell in love with at the latest tournament. Fighting games don't do that. So there's less marketability to the console than there is to the PC.
Yeah. I guess in short, you've become more or less like one of the pillars of the community within the NRS community. Do you feel the community has attributed to some of your success, but at the same more or less the same time, taken away some of your success? Not discrediting you, but like, for example, I know like they've more or less like, I guess they rally against you, but then there's certain times I see them kind of like backing you. I'm just curious, how do you feel the fighting game community treats not only you, but just like its top players?
I feel like the fighting game community is fickle. It's cutthroat. As soon as you do well, they're always on your side. There's guys that blow me up. Look, in sports, I hate on LeBron James all the time. I know it's not true. Of course, he would crush me for it. But it's just fun. It's just part of being entertained. It's entertainment. So if I'm there to entertain someone, whether they're there to cheer me or watch me lose, I'm glad I can entertain them. You know, these guys tune in. Think about it. These are guys that have a regular life, jobs, kids, wives. NBA playoffs are on, football's on, but they tune into a tournament stream to watch me win or get my ass kicked. They don't even know who the hell I am, but they tune in to watch anyway. And that says something. That's more of an honor for me as opposed to me feeling bad about it. And everyone, be it a supporter or someone who's against me, those guys are the main reason why I have any opportunity, any success. It doesn't really matter what I can do, how well I can write, how well I can speak, commentate, or play. I've been speaking well for 20 years, didn't get any of these opportunities. I've been writing well for 20 years. I've been playing well for 20 years. It wasn't until the era got to where it is now, and I've had all these supporters and or haters, and those guys really made me what I am today. Without them, I'm just a guy playing a game, and no one knows about it. And I owe 100% of everything I have ever had or will ever have to all of them.
Finally, I mean, what's been your biggest achievement? Is it writing the guides for Prima? Like, what do you feel? What do you get the most joy of out of competing or just in general within the gaming profession?
I do like the competing because it's very fun for me. But I think for me, it's the guide writing and the testing with NRS. You know, I grew up, on Mortal Kombat, and to be able to set foot in Nether Realm Studios, talk to, the designers like Paulo and John, and back when Hector was a producer there, and, Brian LeBaron, who's the designer, and Eddie Ferrier, who used to be a tester for so many years, and now he's a designer now, and, Ed Boon, and, who's, the head guy there. And to be able to set foot in there, and they have this cafeteria, and inside they have an arcade called Goro's Lair, and they have all the MKs, the Grid, all these games that, Blitz, that from my childhood that I grew up playing, and just to know that I'm there in that studio with the guys who made all these games and are continuously making games, and that I have a chance to help test and make the next game a better game than the previous one, or a more fair game. Just the fact that it could be the slightest suggestion that changes things. It could be just a chance to be a part of the process where the game is being made and talk to the guys that make it. I think that's my greatest achievement. And also writing the guides, that's also a big thing, to be able to. I think writing guides well really helps a game be successful. I mean, like I brought up earlier, there are a lot of guys out there in this world who just feel like they just don't have the time to put into as the next guy, as these pro gamers, to learn the game well. So I think when you buy a guide, you're basically paying to have somebody learn the game for you. You don't want some BS guide of stuff that's not going to help you. So I think the guide writing is also, one of the biggest pinnacles, of my career so far, because simply, you're able to take this guy who would probably pick up the game, mash buttons, and then say, it's not for me. Because you put so much time and effort into it, to really learning the game for them. They can pick up this book, learn the game, through someone else's eyes, and really get a better understanding is if they sat there and mashed the buttons for a while. And this guy that would have normally picked the game up, played it, and dropped it, may end up enjoying it a lot more, may become a member of the community, or may actually become a top player, whereas here's a guy who probably would have picked the game up, played it, put it down, never played it again. Instead, he reads this guide, gets a better understanding quickly because he's able to have help learning the game. He becomes high level, then he gets his friends into the game. So just by getting one guy into a game who would have quit, you could basically resurrect an entire local scene where there would be nothing. So I think the testing at NRS and definitely the guide writing, is the pinnacle of it. The commentating is awesome. The commentating for MLG is 1 in a million. And I would love to be a full-time commentator for them, just to be able to take a casual audience and a professional audience as well, and just really explain what's going on. You understand they're sitting there and they're saying, okay, what's this fighting game? I'm not accustomed to fighting games. It just looks like two guys mashing buttons, and to really be able to explain to them and really have them get into the game, I think it's also something that's really big for me. So those things are probably the not so much the playing, but just the testing, the writing, and the commentating, that is a bigger success to me than any win I could ever have.
Now, since we have the site's Obsolete Gamer, so we talk about a lot of classic games and things like that. So we always like to ask, all our guests if there's a classic game that they would consider like their favorite. So I know that you've been playing a lot of old school games. You played in arcades. Would you say that there's a classic game that you would put as your top? Like, let's say you were stranded on an island and you had one classic game that you had to play. Like, which one would it be?
Any game at all.
Yep, any game, any console,
Uh,
computer, anytime.
Gauntlet Legends. Gauntlet is so cool. I'll sit there with
Gauntlet
Gauntlet and
Legends,
just get every character to level 99. I'll just keep going. Gauntlet. It's one of my favorite games I've ever played.
awesome.
It's Gauntlet.
It was great what you were saying earlier about DC and because I was thinking like back in the day I remember playing DC Task Force, and that was like one of those games where like a lot of people didn't play it because they didn't like it, and I don't know, for some reason it was like the first chance that I ever got to play the DC heroes in a fighting game, and yeah, it wasn't that great, but I mean for me, it was fun to be able to play some of those older fighting games, and I remember like when you had that era of classic games where everyone was trying to make a little fighter. I remember when they came out with the Double Dragon fighting game. It was kind of supposed to be like the Street Fighter, and it wasn't
Yeah, I
very
remember
good.
that.
And it's like they released all these games, and it was just interesting. And especially with like MAME later on, playing a lot of the Japanese, the SNK fighters, playing the Last Blade, things like that. Were you into like those type of games as well?
Yeah, I was actually. I actually have a Neo Geo, and when I was younger, I played the Last Blades, the Samurais. I played all those games in the arcade as well. And so getting a Neo Geo was pretty fun for me because I got to play a lot of those other games as well as like the newer games that were coming out. So I was definitely into all those games: Last Blade, Mark of the Wolves. Not so much KOF, but Samurai Showdown was a big favorite of mine. I didn't like when they started to go 3D.
Yeah.
But I did like, 1, 2, 3, 4. I was pretty big of those into the arcade era as well. So those games were awesome. For me, those are some of my favorite games. Those are just kind of like fun times games where really no professional scene. You like fighting games. You're playing with friends or playing in the arcade with guys you don't know who are also good. And you want to compete, but you're also playing for fun. You just like it. What's better than a bunch of samurais kicking the crap out of each other? So. And that and the wrestling games, I love some of the wrestling games I used to play, whether it be, in my opinion, the THQ games were the best, where it be, WCW vs. NWO, WCW vs.
Oh
NWO
yeah.
Revenge, WrestleMania 2000, No Mercy. Those games are just, head and shoulder. And then the arcade ones, you had WrestleFest in the early days.
Oh yeah.
First you
WrestleFest.
had WWF, I believe it was Superstars, then you had WrestleFest. You had WrestleMania the arcade game. Wrestle War by Sega. Saturday Night's Main Event. I forget what company made that. Konami maybe was it. You had, and that was with all the bootleg guys. The guy that looked like Hulk Hogan, but they couldn't say Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Guy that was Coco Beware, but they couldn't say Coco Beware. Or you had, Slam Masters. Just all, there were so many games out there that you could just play, and they were just so fun. And it's tough to choose a favorite game, but there are just so many of them that are really, really, really good. So I'd like to see some of these older games get remade.
I think it's interesting just how tournaments and even things like Twitch TV, came about. We were talking before we started the show about how YouTube purchased Twitch. And it's like if you think about it, it's
Or
easy.
$1 billion.
$1 billion, yeah. It's easy to see now the evolution, because I remember just going to arcades. And if you think about it, if you grew up during the arcade times, the scene of seeing people standing around and watching an arcade game being played was one that you saw a lot, and it wasn't just because you were poor or you ran out of quarters. Sometimes you would see a game and you were said to yourself, you know what, I actually want to watch this game. And of course, when console came out, I would end up watching people play games as well. But in the arcade, you would have that stand around factor, and that would happen in fighting games as well. Especially, I would say, when the Mortal Kombats came out, especially later on when you saw more and more combos come out, like in MK2 and stuff like that, and when the Street Fighter Versus came out, when you had like X-Men, Children of the Atom, and then you started having the Versus come out, you really started to see people come and stand around the arcades and watch, and you weren't sure if they were studying or just amazed at people going at it. And then I remember when they actually started to have at a few select arcades, they had the Connect, where they would have it connected to another arcade, so you could actually play one arcade versus another arcade on a particular system.
Correct.
So it's like no surprise to see that now you have not only the tournament system, but then you have people who are willing to watch fighting games on Twitch TV and other mediums. So it's cool to see the evolution. I mean, do you think that of course, with Google, anything, you're going to have people that's going to say, oh my God, big business is going to ruin something. But do you see this as a positive overall, a purchase like this, that it's going to expand the reach of this type of visual medium for gaming?
I do. First of all, I want to say that as far as fighting games go, Team Spooky changed the entire industry. Without Spooky, fighting games would be in the Stone Age still. And I just want to say that Spooky is the best in the business and a pioneer for streaming and fighting games. And nobody has done for fighting games what Spooky has. I think it's the best possible thing to happen for gaming. I mean, right now, it's almost like another thing where right now I can watch streams for any game, be it League of Legends, Warcraft, StarCraft, Injustice, even Mortal Kombat, Killer Instinct. There are all kind of streams I can tune in to watch. And I can learn, I can watch my favorite players or learn about the game or just watch a high-level play from the comfort of my own home. It's kind of like pay-per-view without paying. But it introduces the guy at home to the guys in the main on the main stream. And I think it's really big because it helps fighting game play. There wouldn't be half of the sponsorships out there for half of the players if the average guy didn't know who they were, because the average guy now gets to watch them on stream and follow those players. It makes some of the biggest name players common household names, which makes them worth money in a certain industry. If you're a big name fighting game player and almost every fighting game player knows who you are, you're obviously worth money marketing wise to someone. Same thing for StarCraft, League of Legends, whatever. But those players wouldn't have that platform. They wouldn't be known. They wouldn't have that name if not for the streaming. So I think streaming is the first and possibly biggest step toward fighting games being an actual profession. Fighting games are a profession, but only for a very select few, whether it's guys that make money by winning or guys that make money doing other things, commentating, testing, writing, whatever it may be. But it's a very small percentage that actually are getting paid money, are professionals. But I think streaming is probably the biggest reason why you actually have a bigger pool, or any real professional gamers at all. And streams is the biggest reason for that. And I think it's only going to grow as time goes on.
I guess in closing, I'd like to congratulate you on your recent sponsorship with RG Gaming. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about them.
Yeah. RG is run by Joe Crudy. And I have teammates. I have Flocker, a good friend of mine, Rico Suave, Sonic Fox, F Champ, who's a phenomenal player, as well as Rico in so many games. And you get it's right now RRG is actually doing something with Elgato, which is one of the best streaming equipment you'll ever get. Streaming is such a big part of just even not just professional fighting game players, but even casual guys or the pro guys at home can stream from their home, so you don't just have to wait for a tournament to watch the pro guys. You can watch them play every day, be it practice. You can actually, a pro guy can stream from his home and show casual guys their process. Hey, this is how I break down fighting games, and they can watch these pro guys go from good to great and it's entertainment, whether they pick something up or they they're just entertained by it. And RG right now has got something going on with Elgato, where if you actually go to their site, everybody wants to stream, everybody wants to be famous. Let's be serious here, So anyone can stream. You can actually go to, and not just streaming, but also you can make high quality videos for anything, be it gaming or whatever else you do on your computer. You can go to Elgato, their website, and you can enter the promo code RG Live, and you actually will get 10% off on your purchase. So the cool thing about RG is not only do you have great teammates and you have a great sponsor in Joe Crudy, but you also have they're also doing stuff to. They understand what gaming is. They understand. Hey, they're doing stuff with Elgato. And that only helps in general the fighting game scene. Hey guys, you know what? Get an Elgato, save 10%. It's just more guys streaming, more guys getting their names out there in video games. So I think RG is really going places, and I have some of the best teammates I could ever ask for.
I guess to wrap it up, where can the viewers that are going to see this, obviously, where can they see you at your next tournament and also follow you, Twitter handles and stuff like that?
You can follow me on Twitter at MK_Tom Brady. My next tournament will be, I don't know if I'm commentating MLG Anaheim, but if I'm not commentating, I'll definitely be there to play with some of my closest friends. Where I don't play online anymore. I'm seriously dedicated to winning again. We play 100% offline, and we're leveling up. We're really going there to make a splash. So definitely check us out at MLG Anaheim, whether I'm playing or commentating. And you'll definitely catch me at the only tournament I will never, ever miss, CEO. Those are my next stops.
Cool. All right. Jay, do you have any more questions you want to ask?
No, I'm good.
You're good?
Great. Yeah.
All right, then. In closing, I guess everybody gets to meet Tom Brady. Tom Brady's been a friend of mine now for the past 3 or 4 years. It's been a pleasure not only gaming with him, but learning from him. I look forward to playing him at CEO. It'll be fun. And I guess that's it. Any shout-outs, Tom?
Yeah, I definitely want to give shout-outs to, the House of Goons. Well, it's not there anymore, Jop, Funk, Ice Cold Edge, Jaeger, all those guys down there in Dallas. So what I have, I owe to him. He's helped me so much over the years. Same can be said for Perfect Legend. Of course, my training partners right now, Rico Suave, CD Junior, Maxter, CD Prime, those guys, really, really, really helped. And shout outs to 16-bit, Nether Realm, Test. He loves the game. He's passionate toward the community. Passionate to have a guy like him in that studio. And of course, the guys that make the games for us, Ed, Paulo, John. I wouldn't ask for any better designers than the ones we have. We're part of the industry, and those guys definitely deserve shout outs. And guys, man, shout outs to all you guys, and thanks for everything you do.
Cool. All right. I guess in closing, if anybody wants to come out and challenge Tom, feel free to go out there and do it. Come to CEO Orlando. We'll be here. And if you can't handle the heat, you know what keys you have to press then. Go ahead and press Alt F4 and quit out.
That's right. Peace.